Hey, this is Veronica with Craft Review. Today I'm going to be making a pom-pom out of faux fur fabric. And the materials I'm going to be using are a piece of faux fur that's about 5 by 5 inches, a marker to mark the fur with. I'm just using a permanent marker, but you can use, if you want to be extra neat, you can use a disappearing ink fabric marker. I have a pair of scissors to cut the fabric with, a measuring tool, thread, any color is fine for this project, and an embroidery needle. The reason I use an embroidery needle is because it's a little heavier duty than some sewing needles, and if you have an extra thick faux fur backing, you can even use something as heavy as a denim needle or even a canvas needle if it's a really stiff backing. So I'm going to start by measuring out a circle on my fabric that's about 3.5 inches in diameter. Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact, so you don't have to worry about making it a perfect circle or anything. Alright, I'm going to draw my circle here. And it's a rough circle. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the circle, being careful not to cut through the fur on the front side of the fabric. I have a video about cutting faux fur if you want to check that out. And the reason I like working with faux fur so much is that it's really forgiving. Like, you can really do a lot of projects with it and have them come out well, because a small mistake isn't going to ruin faux fur, because you have this beautiful fur on the front that's going to mask any issues that you have with your stitching or your cutting or anything like that. I'm going to go around and remove any loose fiber on the cut. And then when I go to thread up my needle, I'm going to actually quadruple up the thread, because the knit of the backing of the fabric is a fairly, compared to the size of the thread, it's a fairly loose knit. And we're also going to be gathering this fabric, so I want to make sure that I have a nice sturdy thread to gather it with, and that the knot at the end won't pop through the fabric when we're gathering the pom-pom at the end. I'm going to double knot it down here. Okay. And now I'm going to stitch in a running stitch around the outer edge of the fabric. I'm going to start at, you can see the fur runs this way. I'm going to start at the top because it's going to be easier when I go to gather it at the end. And I'm going to start about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. You don't need to be exact with it. And I'm just going to do a pretty long running stitch. Stitches maybe about 1/4 inch long or so. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. Thankfully, it's not rocket science, and it'll probably turn out beautifully, whatever mistakes you make. As long as you get to the end, it's going to look great. And I just sort of loosely stitch as I go, and then I gather it all at the end when it's something small like this. Just doing several stitches at a time, and then making sure the thread gets laid flat here. If you want to check out my other videos, I actually have a lot on faux fur, because I've been working with faux fur for several years now, and I've just sort of amassed a number of tricks in working with it. Alright, so I'm going to get to the start here, and I'm actually going to take some of this fur that I've cut away, and I cut a few little pieces of it, and that's going to be the filling for the pom-pom. It's going to give it some shape here. That should be good. Alright, so I'm going to grab a firm hold of it with my thumb and my middle finger here in the center of the pom-pom, and then just pull taut on that thread, and that'll gather it nice and tight. And then when it's almost all the way gathered, I'm going to fill it with this scrap fabric here. And the great thing about using the scrap fabric as the filling is that if a little bit is popping through along this bottom edge here, it's not going to be noticeable at all because it's the same color. Alright. I want mine to have a nice solid shape here. Alright, I'm going to pull that real tight, but keep this needle on here because at the end, when I'm done gathering, I'm going to just stitch across several times in different directions to make sure that everything stays in place. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and I can feel that it's the seam is nice and sturdy now because it's not wanting to come undone as I stitch. And now that it's all tied up and sewn up, I'm just going to tie off this seam, getting the knot as close to the base as possible so that the fur can mask it. I use the tip of my needle here to get that knot real close. Alright, and that is my pom-pom. Once you shake out the pom-pom and cut off that loose thread there, you'll see that you have a pom-pom that's ready to sew to whatever you want to sew it to. I have a hat here so that I can show you approximately the size of the pom-pom. So that was a 3.5-inch circle that made this size pom-pom. Yeah, that's how to make a pom-pom. I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you want to join me on my channel and subscribe, I would love to have you. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.